What do you think of when you hear Metal Gear? Probably not this. Now, usually when a game breaks away from its traditional norms of its series, it usually brings in some really cool ideas, but often it's not that great. But with Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, a game that focuses on Raiden and is more action-packed and is way different than the other Metal Gear Solid games, it somehow manages to depart from its stealth gameplay in Metal Gear Solid and sticks the landing, while at the same time maintaining the kind of crazy writing that we're used to in Metal Gear. So sit back, crack open a cold energy drink, because I'm about to tell you why Metal Gear Rising Revengeance is not only worthy of the Metal Gear name, but it's also one of the best action games ever made. Metal Gear Rising was developed by Platinum Games, and you have probably played some of their games before if you've played Bayonetta, Astral Chain, or if you've played one of the bad Platinum Games games like Transformers Devastation, The Legend of Korra, games that we typically don't talk about. Now, if you've played any of those other games, you know what to expect with a Platinum Games game. Flashy combat that's as addictive as it is flashy. And when it comes to Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, it's kind of funny because they try to keep the stealth stuff in the game, but let's be honest, this is not a stealth game. I mean, after all, the best kind of stealth in these games is the kind where you leave no witnesses, right? If you've never heard of the game or played it, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance follows Raiden after the events of Metal Gear Solid 4 during his kind of power rock edgy phase with a dash of anime thrown in. And the game exudes a lot of style as you carry out combos, and oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess I kind of forgot to mention this is a pretty violent game. Now, I know the people that watch the videos on my channel are a pretty diverse group of people. And so that being said, to keep the Baptists safe and allow them to watch this, I'm going to cover all the gory bits with a Baptist's favorite thing, Bluey. So anyway, as I was saying, this game is really nothing like Metal Gear Solid. In Metal Gear Solid, you're sneaking around, tranking enemies, and probably having an existential crisis. In Rising, you still have a good amount of weird going on. Bizarre enemies, a subtle philosophy, a main character who is trying to get away from and distance himself from his past. Aren't we all? Now, I'm going to spoil parts of Metal Gear Solid 2, so if you don't want a game that's almost old enough to drink the stuff that the developers did to make this game, consider this your warning. In Metal Gear Solid 2, you learn that Raiden was raised as a child soldier who was so good at killing that he earned the nickname or persona Jack the Ripper. And in Metal Gear Rising, Raiden is up against some truly tough enemies to the point where if he's going to defeat them, he has to embrace his past. And this is actually how the game introduces its rage mode. As you embrace the Jack the Ripper persona during a boss fight, you enable a rage mode, which slows everything down, allows you to go all hacky slashy, and it just gets even more crazy from there. But also with the game's mechanics, it has a new type of mode called cut mode. So if you really liked Fruit Ninja, but it wasn't quite gory enough for you, that's where this game comes into play. You see, cut mode works that whenever you see an enemy's limb glowing blue, or if you see a symbol show up on the screen and everything slows down, that's your moment to hold down left trigger and start slashing and hacking away at whatever's in front of you. And that's the thing about this game. The combat is frenetic, it's violent, as all Platinum games should be. But seriously, like I said, the combat, as I said earlier, it fits with Platinum Games' motto of the combat is as addictive as it is flashy. Now, something we all know about Metal Gear Solid games, at least with 2 and 4, the stories are pretty confusing. And thankfully, that's not the case here. The story is not as complex as what those 2 other games are. You see, the gist is after a job that Raiden is on goes south because this desperado paramilitary group intervenes, he is on the hunt to take him down and get his revenge, hence the name Revengeance. But as Raiden is hunting this group down, he discovers a plot that this group is involved in that hits a little too close to home for him, and now it's his mission to keep this organization from training up child soldiers in cybernetic bodies. And it's this mission that takes him pretty much all over the world and gets him into some pretty interesting encounters. And it's within this game that you see some sort of philosophical questioning of paramilitary groups come into play and cybernetics and all that, but it's nothing quite on par as what we see in Metal Gear Solid 2. So while the story may be less dense than the other games, it's still just as bonkers. And it comes complete with its own cast of villains like Jetstream Sam and, let me see if I'm reading this right, Senator Stephen Armstrong.
Nanomachine, son.
I'm gonna be honest, whoever wrote the script for this game, I really hope they got a raise or something, because some of these lines are just, listen for yourself.
Access the lab's main server?
Perhaps. But first you need to take a dump.
Wait, what?
A dump? A digital optical output mounted proxy. You'll need one to interface with the terminal. Making the mother of all omelets here, Jack. Can't fret over every egg.
Are you, Mr. Raiden, sir?
Now, needless to say, I was pretty surprised when I finished Metal Gear Rising in just 3.5 hours. Granted, I did play the game on easy, but this is a judgment-free zone, people, so I don't want to see any comments saying, oh, you played it on easy, that's not really playing the game. And really, in an age where games are becoming more and more bloated, I'm kind of grateful that this 2013 action game didn't waste any of my time. As a matter of fact, it cut off all the fat to give me a thrill ride of an experience, pun intended. And if I'm completely honest, Metal Gear Rising is probably one of the coolest action games, if not one of the best action games I've ever played. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of kicking myself for not having played it sooner. I've had this game in my library for years and I just have never played it. So it's another Lost Odyssey, which if you want to see me talk about that game, there's the link to that video. And I want to go back and play this game because as you play the game, you can unlock different weapons and outfits for Raiden, and some of them pretty funny. So I want to see what other kind of crazy outfits I can get for Raiden. I'm hoping there's a chicken suit. But I think what makes Metal Gear Rising so perfect is that it manages to focus on one character, completely change the gameplay of what we're used to in Metal Gear Solid, and it just sticks to the landing because it all just seems to work. It's a great game. But if you want to see an example of how you screw that process up and what I would personally do to make the game better, go check out my video on Metroid Other M. But before you do, why not leave a like on this video and consider subscribing for more videos where I take this journey through my retro gaming library and do videos on them. Or check out the podcast that's on this channel that's all about gaming, like our most recent episode where we talk about the good and the bad of the Steam Deck. I'd greatly appreciate it, so thanks if you like the video or subscribe or go check out the other videos. But with that being said, thank you for watching, and be a dear, keep it locked here, and I'll see you in the next video.
But then, what will you do?
I've got my own war to fight.